Hello, my name is Taya Graham, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I've said before, and you know I never get tired of saying this show is focused on a single purpose holding police accountable. But, as I've said before, doing so is not just about calling out and exposing the bad behavior of individual cops. No, we dig deeper, unearthing truisms and facts about the system that imbues policing with unprecedented power. And one of those processes that gives policing political currency is how the system retaliates against people who speak out against it. But before we get started, I want you to know that if you have any evidence of police misconduct, please email it to us privately at par@therealnews.com, and please like and share and comment on our videos. You know I read your comments and appreciate them. Or you can message me directly at Tejas Baltimore on Twitter or Facebook. Now, back to the show. As you know, on the show, we spent a great deal of time talking to auditors, citizens who use cell phone cameras to document police overreach. That includes Blind Justice, Otto the Watchdog, and John Masters. And today, we will be talking to another YouTuber who has made watching the police part of his mission. His name is John Filax, and he has built a substantial YouTube channel documenting the fine line between law enforcement and the preservation of civil rights. John, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So, John, first, I just want to ask because I'm always curious, how did you get started using YouTube to document police misconduct? What prompted you to get started?
What prompted me to get started on YouTube? I'm always looking for ways to make money, and I'm sitting in my office, and there's a gas station within walking distance. So I looked up scratch off tickets, and there was a guy scratching tickets in his basement, and it had like 26,000 views, and it sounded like he was scratching it with a rake. So I started a little stupid scratch off show. And from there, I would just document everything in general. And when I was a kid, Madonna put out a documentary. I thought it was called something, where she basically said she wouldn't mind to have her whole life documented. Which, when you have video documentation and you videotape, not only do you put in something into the historical record, you also have a legacy of things you can prove. And when you talk and you say, hey, this is what happened to me, and a lot of times in America, the American public, yeah, right, dude, yeah, right, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't do that, you wouldn't say this, you wouldn't do this. And as a matter of fact, yes, I would. I could prove it, and I've published it, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have witnessed that I practice what I preach.
So, we spoke to the fiance of the man who filmed Eric Garner's deadly encounter with police, and it is a tale that's really familiar to us: police retaliation for being exposed. Why does American policing have so much leeway to retaliate against people who just want to hold them accountable?
The reason they have this much power, authority, leeway, gray area, blue line, whatever you want to call it, is because slowly but surely, incrementally throughout the years, and with the apathy of the American people, they take a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, little bit, and you know, a million pennies is still $10,000, I think. So yes, you want a million pennies. You might not want the weight of the pennies, but it still amounts to $10,000 in the end. You have that authority, and we've let them do it. We've become apathetic as American people, and guys like me are few and far between that'll throw a camera right in the face of tyranny. As a matter of fact, I get chastised for it, and death threats and stalkers and everything else. People are begging for their own enslavement.
John, have you encountered this problem with retaliation?
As a matter of fact, I get chastised for it, and death threats and stalkers and everything else. People are begging for their own enslavement. Yeah, I'm an auditor. I audit police. I audit the government. Every person who's an American, who's a patriot, you're supposed to hold your government's feet to the fire. The founder said government is like fire. It's useful, but you got to keep it under control. When you start a fire, you don't just douse gasoline everywhere and roast one marshmallow. You start a small fire to roast a small marshmallow. We should have just as much police and government as we need to remain free while still getting our garbage picked up, or whatever all these little socialist things people use to have gigantic government. Police that are killing, they're killing three people a day. So any contact you have with police, you might be one of those three people that day that they killed. So they're pretending like it's all about their safety, when in fact they're the ones putting us in jeopardy and stealing from us and extorting us on a daily basis.
So, John, one interesting concept Stephen and I have encountered.
Because Americans do not live by the Bill of Rights, much less have read the Bill of Rights. I'll give you an example. I used to be a restaurant owner, and I talk about the Bill of Rights all the time. So I had a server one of my servers comes in. I'm talking to her about the amendments and what they mean. Small talk, not trying to lecture, not trying anything. We're talking about the Bill of Rights in the kitchen, and it freaked her out. So she goes out in the dining room and asks one of the I'm American of Greek descent, but she asked one of the American servers, is John and his mom illegal aliens? And she says, no, why? She says, because that's the only people who talk about the Bill of Rights and Constitution. I'm talking about the Bill of Rights. She assumes that I'm an illegal alien because I'm like learning these things to become a citizen or something. Are you kidding me? Why don't you know the 5 things guaranteed in the first? Don't get me wrong, I don't know it by heart, but I know the most important, and that's the first, fourth, fifth. Those are the ones that you can never ever give, and the second, obviously, you can't give any leeway on.
So you posted a video from questionable authority that I'm going to show now, where an officer refuses to maintain social distance from a man politely requesting it. John, what are we seeing in this video, and does this behavior even surprise you?
Do you understand me? Yes, we're doing you the benefit of trying to get permission from someone. Can you just we don't need it. Do you understand that? I do not need to give you a social distance. Do you understand that? I understand that, sir. You invited this on yourself with your attitude.
What you're seeing is, I don't know what happened before the video started, but maybe this kid upset this cop to the point where he lost control. But as a matter of fact, he lost control. And people's words alone, unless he's punching you or tripping you or assaulting you, words alone should not trigger a cop. They should be more professional and more of a man than to do what you're about to see here.
John, are you worried that the pandemic is going to lead to even more power for cops? I mean, what are your concerns about the current crisis being a vehicle for expanded police powers?
I hope they expand and expand and expand until the people wake up and put them right back in the small box that they deserve to be in. Because this middle of the road thing that the police are doing, where they're just giving enough tyranny to where the people are like, oh, it's not so bad. Go ahead, escalate all you want, cops, and you're going to find out what Americans are really all about.
So, John, my last question is this. Most states have pandemic regulations that prohibit, fine, and even jail people for gatherings of more than 10. Just like in my state of Maryland, you can get a $5,000 fine or a year in jail or both.
They can keep pushing and keep pushing, but there's a breaking point no matter what. You're not going to push the American people, 330 million people, into submission. There's not enough of you. There's not enough rifles. There's not enough bullets. There's not enough of you. You guys are a facade. You guys are a paper tiger. And the only reason you can ever do anything to us is because most of the time you outnumber us 10 or 12 to 1. But when you push too far and all of a sudden there's 500 to 1 of you, the tunes are going to change. If you saw in St. Almost Park, Texas, when they did the open carry rally, they lock up the city hall and board up the windows. So all it takes is a few guys with rifles, and boom, just like that, they take over the streets, and no police are able to do anything. That's breaking the paradigm of again, they're paper tigers. They're really nobody, and the reason they are somebody right now is because we let them. Keep pushing us, and you're going to find out what reality is. That's the bottom line. It's happened many times in history, and it's bound to happen again, because power, like you said, once it takes, it doesn't give back.
Now, I want to address something that relates to the theme of the day, and it was some pushback from viewers that resulted from our last show. Several comments said that we were being too hard on our hometown police department. They also made comments about the past record of Tyrone West, who was killed by police during a brutal 45-minute beatdown in 2013. As always on the show, we like to be responsive to our viewers, so I want to address those concerns directly. And to do so, I'm joined by my co-host, Stephen Janis, with some breaking news. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Tay. I appreciate it.
So, as we've reported before, our police department is under a federal consent decree. The city entered into an agreement after an investigation found that the troubled organization had implemented unconstitutional and racist strategies. Part of the process included an assessment of how the public feels about the relationship with the police department. And we have some news on that. Can you talk about the findings?
Yes, Tay. Well, actually, the federal monitor who is being paid to monitor the Baltimore Police Department as part of the consent decree, just published a report that included a survey of over 600 residents and asked them how they felt about the police department, whether they thought it was competent, capable of fighting crime. And in basically in all categories, the police department failed miserably. Over 50 to 60% residents say they were very dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied with the police department. They felt that the police department was not fair to people based upon race, and they felt that the Baltimore Police Department was not effective at fighting crime. So overall, an F grade for the police department from the community.
Now, more than a decade ago, when you covered the police department, they would also retaliate against people who spoke out. I remember one of your first cases, which was caught on camera, they also punished the photographer. What happened?
Well, there was a nephew and his uncle. His uncle was being harassed by police. Police had thrown him to the ground while in handcuffs, and the nephew captured the video. His name was Fred Curry, on camera, and gave it to me as a reporter. We published the photographs and, of course, created a big stir and controversy. And a week or two later, they arrested Fred Curry on trumped-up drug charges, throwing him in jail for over 20 months. Which he was completely innocent of. It was just someone was dealing crack on the block that he was visiting, and they just said, "Oh, we know who you are." And very similar to the Eric Garner situation, it sounds almost exactly the same. And locked him up for two or 3 years. And really, it was basically nothing more than a case of retaliation.
And the police department also liked to tout the arrest records of victims of brutality. But there's a mitigating factor in our city, which was our experience with zero tolerance. Can you talk about zero tolerance and the effect it had on the citizens of Baltimore?
Well, for almost 7 years, the Baltimore City Police Department arrested over 100,000 city residents per year. That is 1 in 6 people. We have a city with a population of 600,000. So it was an insane amount of arrests. It was almost impossible not to be arrested. And of course, every time I would write about a victim of police brutality, the first thing the police communications people would bring up is their arrest record. Well, it's almost impossible not to get an arrest record when police have arrested over 700,000 people, many of them illegally, many of them, as the Justice Department pointed out, for unconstitutional reasons. So it's absurd to bring that up because it's not fair.
So let's be clear. The Baltimore Police Department may be uniquely dysfunctional, but it is the ability to maintain that lack of competence, which says more about American policing than any specific incident, despite the fact that most residents are clearly unhappy with it and continue to believe it cannot solve the city's penchant for violence. The BPD continues to garner more funding than any other city agency. The fact is, Baltimore spends almost twice as much on policing as it does on education. The imbalance becomes exponential when you compare it to public health, which begs the question, what kind of institution could continue to fail its constituents but get more money, not less? How is it possible that an agency so generally disliked could extract more largesse from City Hall? Well, that's a question we have tackled often on this show and is at the heart of why we continue to report in the first place. The truth is, American policing, as Stephen and I have discussed, has a special hold on both American politics and culture. Cop shows abound. Politicians can't say enough good things about law enforcement, and the legal system defers to them whenever possible. This is not just my opinion. These are facts. They have been recounted in the lengthy Department of Justice investigation into the Baltimore Police Department. They have played out in endless cases of brutality we've reported on, and they are bolstered by the opinion of the people themselves who, as we just revealed, expressed complete lack of confidence in the department to perform its most basic task, fighting crime. So are we really picking on the police department? Are we being too hard on cops? Should we always repeat the charges they bring against victims of brutality, despite the fact they've been caught making up crimes out of whole cloth over and over again? This is the problem with American policing. It is more than just a matter of management or training or even funding. It is a crisis of culture, a culture of power that has evolved around policing that has substituted facts for fake morality and an us against them mentality. It has become a business so large and overfunded that has pivoted from protect and serve into extract and earn. It has generated a political economy which recycles the spoils of income inequality into Kevlar vests, tanks, and armored personnel carriers rumbling through neighborhoods or communities like an occupying army. And that is the problem. Policing simply has too much power, which is why we will continue to report on it and ask tough questions. Put simply, we will continue to do our part. We will continue to report the facts along with critical context. We will continue to hold the police accountable because not doing so is the only true crime I can think of. And I want to thank John Filax for joining us and sharing his insights with us. Thank you so much, John.
I really love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really a privilege. You don't need to thank me. And thanks so much, Taya.
And of course, I want to thank my co-host and reporting partner, Stephen Janis, for his editing, writing, and reporting. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Hey, thank you so much. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you.
And of course, I have to shout out friend of the show, Noli D, who was a great support. Thank you, Noli D. And last but not least, I want you watching to know that if you do have evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us and we might be able to investigate. Please reach out to us. You can email us tips privately at par@therealnews.com and share your evidence of police misconduct. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. And of course, you can message me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter and Facebook. And please like and comment. I do read your comments and appreciate them. And whenever possible, I try to address your comments and thoughts. My name is Taya Graham. I'm your host for the Police Accountability Report. Please be safe out there.